Welcome to the Legally Speaking podcast. You are now listening to season 7 of the show. I'm your host, Rob Hanna. I've got some exciting news for you. Legally Speaking podcast is hitting the road and heading to 𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐿 2023 in Nashville from October the 9th to the 10th. Imagine 2 days jam-packed with game-changing insights, networking opportunities, and the chance to connect with legal minds from around the globe. Whether you're an attorney, paralegal, or just someone passionate about the world of law, this conference is for you. So mark your calendars and join us at 𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐿 2023 and see you in Nashville. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Jeremy Hopkins. Jeremy is the Director of Legal Operations at Content Square. Jeremy previously worked as a practice manager, senior clerk, and director of clerking at several barristers' chambers. He's held positions such as head of operations at Riverview Law, where he played a leading role in growing the firm's reputation in commercial legal marketplace. Since then, Jeremy has held positions such as client relationship manager, legal operations manager, senior legal project manager at the likes of Baker McKenzie, and sat as a head of client services and legal operations too. So Jeremy has a wealth of experience in senior leadership roles, management in-house legal departments, law firms, and more. So a very happy birthday to you, Jeremy, and a very warm welcome to you on the show.
Thank you, Rob. Wow, that guy sounds amazing. you got me.
I think we've got the right guy. Before we talk about all your amazing projects, experiences to date, we do have a customary ice-breaking question here on the Legally Speaking podcast, which is, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very real, what would you rate the hit TV series Suits in terms of its reality of the law, if you've seen it?
I haven't seen it. Isn't it something that young people watch? So I wouldn't have seen it. So I'll just put it a 5 in the middle so I don't upset anyone.
Well, that's a good guess, because actually that's what I rated it, and I have seen it. So great minds think alike. But let's move swiftly on to talk all about you and your career. So obviously I touched on it loosely in the introduction, but would you mind telling our listeners just a bit more about your background in career?
Yeah, sure. So I stumbled into legal about 30 years ago, not deliberately. I never wanted to be a lawyer or anything. I kind of did it at what we call A level in the UK. That's a kind of way before degree level. I didn't go any further, and I just found it interesting. And I stumbled into a job just working in the courts, working in admin in the courts. Saw law happening. I thought this is kind of fun. Got a job in a barrister's chambers, which is really a managerial role, but the context is legal. And then really from there, it evolved into being understanding and kind of overcoming this perception of law, these kind of revered super brains, these amazing people, and actually starting to realize that they're quite normal. In fact, so normal they needed to pay me to do some very mundane things that they didn't seem capable of doing. And that sort of over time, that the general theme throughout my career is actually understanding the gap that exists between this incredible intellectual legal brain and actually the reality of where that legal knowledge needs to be applied. So I've sort of carried on in that space between lawyers and service delivery. So barristers' chambers in the UK, these are trial lawyers, specialist trial lawyers. So the way they're set up is purely focused on courtrooms, court hearings, all the organisation and everything that goes around that. I did that. It's very much a sort of closed shop. Frankly, it's pretty well paid. It's pretty specialised. It's very closed shop. Typically, not many people move out of that market. For that reason, I think. But actually, I only realised when I did move out of it after 20 or so years how valuable the skills you build up are. And I was lucky to move out because we had in 2012 we had the Legal Services Act in the UK. It was 2007, but its impact was felt in about 2011, 2012, enabling new players, new entrants into the legal services market. And one such new player was a company called Riverview Law that was set up as a deliberate, noisy disruptor, all about focus on the client, all about customer focus, all about getting rid of billable hours. Really loud message, slightly brash message at the time. But it started up basing its service delivery model around using barristers' chambers, because barristers are self-employed individuals. So you've got this kind of freelance pool of legal brains that you don't need to have on the payroll. So it was a great start. And as a result of that, a result of my presence on Twitter and a lot of blogging and a lot of just sort of visibility in the modernizing law space, I came into contact with the CEO of that company, started working for them, and in a way it sort of thrust me into the world of business and law and in-house legal and turning law into a product, outsourcing services, what value means, and that sort of world really. So that was back in 2012, and I've just found that whole journey away from the legal side to the client side, and now trying to find the balance in the middle where you optimize what you get out of lawyers, but you also chuck in to the mix business now, technology, process. So I feel, I find myself in a sort of comfortable home working in house, sort of drawing all of those things together.
Yeah, and you've obviously built up a wide range of skills and experience, and I will sort of trickle through onto that in due course. But sort of going back to, obviously you've been practice manager, obviously clerk. What, for people who may be less familiar, what duties do you have as a clerk, and tell us a bit more about that sort of time as in barrister chambers.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because again, it's the name. Barrister's clerk is kind of, it's a clerk. But actually, what you're doing, you really are the front door to this legal service. So your day job as a barrister clerk involved back then taking phone calls. We had telephones, taking phone calls from solicitors who in the UK are other lawyers, non-trial lawyers, who would contact you. Your day job was receive an inquiry saying, hey, I've got this kind of dispute for this kind of a client. I need a court hearing on that date. I've got this budget. All that kind of working out what the problem is. Who is the right lawyer? Who's got the right expertise to do that? Who's available? Can we negotiate the price? Can you make sure it's delivered on time? And all of that. So really, it's a kind of, in a way, it's a sort of thing that it still amazes me. So even though the customer, if you like, was a law firm, would be coming to me, and the big law firms, I was working in sector, I was dealing with there's a big global law firm. All the things that they will be asking for, I want a fixed price, I want it done by then, are all the things their clients would ask of them, but wouldn't get. And I've always found that kind of interesting. And that's something I've always brought with me. You are, wherever you are in this market, there is a problem to be solved. It needs some legal knowledge. It needs an output for a certain client that's going to do something for them in their world. So you've got those different perspectives you have to match up. So the barrister's clerking world was very much, it was immersed in that. Yet I'm not quite sure I realized it until I moved out of that world into a place where I'm thinking, hang on, I'm asking all the questions that probably aren't being asked because they're obvious to me from my world, but not to anyone else.
Yeah, and again, thank you for sharing that. And let's go back to where you're talking about your careers and sort of moves as well, because we've touched on it. You moved to become the head of operations at Review Law. I love the sort of disruption nature. It's something that I'm just all about. So, what strategies did you sort of implement to establish and grow the particular reputation of Review Law, particularly in the commercial legal marketplace?
It was a brilliant team to be part of. It was a really exciting journey. The whole, it had proper investors from business, and actually people. Typically, it was funded by sort of private investors. It had there was a stake from, and it was quite well publicised at the time, that DLA Piper, the law firm, had a small stake in it. But the idea being to completely disrupt. But it was very professional. We had a slick brand, website, publicity. But the key thing was the brand. Everyone within the business, internally, external facing, everyone talked in the same language. It was about value. The strapline was legal input, business output. It was all about giving, thinking and listening and delivering what the market wanted, and getting away from the law firm to set up to provide benefits to law firms, to make profits, to make PEP, to deliver the billable hour. We were the opposite, the antithesis of that, yet we still used and leveraged the credibility of top lawyers. So for me, it was the messaging, the professionalism, just the sort of marketing disciplines, the targeting. We did lots of events, real focus on in-house legal, real focus on a product that worked for in-house legal, outsourcing the business as usual, fixed annual fees, business as usual. You can fix a price for capturing data, building processes, just giving people dashboards that were explaining to them how to reduce their legal requirement, not more, not billable hour. You want to do more hours. Our job was, if you're on a fixed annual subscription to provide a certain service, it's your job to reduce demand, which is just like an in-house lawyer's job, not to generate more demand so you can bill more hours and make more profits. Your job to make more profits was actually to be profitable, not to generate revenue. So so the incentives aligned, and I think getting that message across. So the whole foundation and the fundamentals of positioning the business aligned with the brand. It was real. It was authentic. Well, the challenge was delivering it. You had to put your money where your mouth is. If you're talking efficiency, technology, you've got to do that to leverage and make a profit, which ultimately we did, because the business was bought by EY in 2019. So they saw something promising in it. But that was a really interesting journey.
Yeah, and a great success story there as well, and great example. So Let's talk about some of your other roles as well, because I mentioned in the introduction you've also been a client relationship manager. Tell us about your time. Was it Obelisk support? So how did you support the leadership and become a senior member? Tell us more there.
So Obelisk again, it's another business that's in the disruption space because it was another one of the sort of new law models. But it was the great thing about it was it was quite similar in different behind the scenes, but a similar delivery model in that it was there to deliver what businesses wanted, a need for in-house legal teams. But the happier side to that, it was doing so based on delivery from contracting from freelance lawyers with a focus on women and enabling women's careers, and primarily enabling women who would take a career break to have children, coming from a city firm and knowing they going back to that city firm, they just wouldn't, despite all the talk, and I'm sure it's changed a bit these days. We won't go there. But despite all the talk, they weren't being supported on their return, or even if they were being regarded as secondary because they couldn't put in the hours. So Obelisk was designed to enable people to take control of their careers, and it really caught on because actually the buyers, GCs wanted to buy responsibly, wanted to buy legal services from really good lawyers who just weren't empowered to work in city firms anymore. And they kind of realised you could just get the top caliber talent from that pool that was otherwise getting lost. So working in an organisation like that with an inspirational leader, but being part of I guess it was leveraging all my knowledge and being so immersed and embedded in the in-house legal community, was trying to align the perception of the business as not a bums on seats, not a temping agency, we're a legal services provider. Because you could, the whole sort of mission was to say, okay, if a GC says, well, hang on, you're a temping agency, aren't you? Here's why we're not. We're a legal service delivery agent because, and these are the reasons why. This is what we understand about your business. This is how we deliver. This is the process and technology we use. So even though we're made up like this, all you see is you put your request in and you get your answer. Our job is to do the heavy lifting to reconcile what your needs are with our sort of talent base. So you're doing that bit in the middle and getting that message across and being able to deliver it. Again, you've got to say it and then you've got to do it. So it was a similar thing, but from a different angle. And it was actually a joy to be part of something that's made such a big impact in encouraging diversity into. And it has, thankfully, it hasn't changed enough, I'm sure. And I know Dana, the CEO, would not be happy that things have changed enough, but sure, they've changed a hell of a lot in that time. But a lot down to organisations like that really sort of banging the drum and really making a big impact to buying behaviours as well as influencing others, like it or not, that they have to improve their access to the profession.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree, and I support, because we also had Donna come on the show talking about sort of what they're doing, and I think it's great that you sort of share that vision, and obviously it's tremendous work that you did there and what they're doing, and we actively support that on the show. I guess talking more about your career, you previously worked, as I mentioned in the intro, sort of legal operations manager. You're also senior legal project manager at the likes of Baker McKenzie. You've had quite varied roles, legal operations consultant. In what ways have these roles evolved and varied across different companies and firms that you've been part of? Because these job titles just didn't exist years and years ago, connected to the legal industry.
That is absolutely true. And it actually all goes, although the titles are all changing, everything goes back to what I was explaining about barristers' chambers. Actually, it's all about reconciling market needs with your service delivery, but there are just different dynamics and different priorities. And actually, working for a law firm, I enjoy working at Baker's. It's a nice firm. I met some lovely people, got some amazing experience working on some huge either deals, disputes, investigate all those kind of things. So there's masses in there, but you just see the other dynamic. So you I sort of put myself in there on a prospectus of having a really good network in-house legal, understanding what they want. I can help shape the delivery of services towards what in-house lawyers want. We can be innovative. We can use more technology. And it was, yeah, great. We need someone like you. But actually, and that was great. And that was embraced. But ultimately, you're still, once you're in, you are still up against the big machinery of billable hours targets that whatever anyone's best will in the world is to be innovative and deliver these things, that is always looming over you. So you end up being with, although everyone wants to do all these things, ultimately that isn't your main driver. So you see in all law firms, and frankly, it was possibly watered down more there than others. I think I've had experience of, but you won't get away from that whilst we still have the billable hour model in the big law firm partnership. But having said that, you had access to amazing people, brilliant quality people, a nice culture, and yes, there was a desire and to use technology, and there was a great use of technology, and that. I'm going back a while now, 5 or 6 years ago, but there were some brilliant systems and processes used to manage large deals, to do closings, to do due diligence, and all of those things, whatever the tools you use. Back then it was SharePoint, may still be SharePoint. I kind of think it doesn't matter the tools. If you've got a mindset about doing things in a process-oriented way, eliminating duplication, using data across platforms, those sort of things, applying that, you can't really deliver some of these massive global deals without doing that. So that mindset was embedded. So there wasn't a kind of, hey, you've got to build a business case and an argument to use this. You had to. You couldn't deliver those kind of deals without it. And there was a great team and a great bunch of people. So actually, even though I've kind of a bit of a critique of the model, but the journey and what I learned and it's just become invaluable as the journey continues.
And I like that. And I always talk to people, particularly with careers, legal careers, it's building blocks. Every role is sort of a building block towards your journey. You're picking up tools, experiences that you can ultimately then bring to your next role, develop, learn new things. And, as of today, you're currently the director of legal operations at Content Square. So for those who don't know what maybe a director of legal operations is, would you mind explaining a bit more about the role and then, of course, telling us more about?
Sure. So not for the first time in this conversation, I'm mentioning a misnomer. So legal operations has become quite a recognized role, but it isn't really all about operations. Operations is a bit of it. It's in a way there isn't. The real name is too mundane. It literally is management of the business function that is a legal function. So you deal with all elements of that. You deal with the strategy, the brand, the financing, the budgets, the spend, the technology, the tools, a bit of resource management. It is all of the management, business management elements. It's everything but the giving the legal advice, delivering the actual legal advice and drafting, really. It's become, I guess, I think it's more prevalent, seen, and it is a key element of it, is the process of the legal service delivery, building systems and processes that embed the legal team within all areas of the business. So you can deliver effectively, you can deliver at scale, you can automate as much as you can, but you can identify where the risk is and make sure the lawyers are focused around the key risk and value, and you can automate the things that aren't. So it's prioritizing getting the most out of the resource and going back to the fact that as an in-house legal team, your job is to reduce and manage and contain demand, not to generate more. So every single thing you do is about multiplying efficiencies, multiplying scalability. So you can't end up doing, if you start, you go into these roles typically on a sort of green field, you've got your blank sheet of paper. If you just start looking for work to fill your days, it can be meaningful and valuable work, but unless it's work that's going to scale or enable and empower others and have knock-on effects, you'll end up just building yourself a kind of brick wall to smash your head into. So you have to be quite ruthless, and you actually have to reinvent yourself quite frequently, because you can very easily get comfortable becoming a support function, whereas actually if you're doing your job right, you'll set everything up and you'll make yourself redundant in that area. You'll make yourself redundant totally, but you won't, because there's always change. There's more change needed to be done. But you tend to find you get super, super comfortable, and then you've got to find yourself uncomfortable again, because you've got to find new areas to deliver value.
And we talk a lot about that on the show, particularly from a sort of development point of view. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and ensure that you're going into those rooms where you're going to grow, learn, and ultimately move forward. So let's stick with the Content Square then, because it's an AI platform. People not familiar, an AI powered, should I say, platform, providing rich and contextual insights into customer behaviors, feeling, and intent, enabling businesses to build empathy. I mean, some people listening to that might just think, wow. So can you tell us more about what the software development platform stands for? Time for a short break from the show. Are you looking for a way to get your firm working more efficiently and profitably while ensuring a better work-life balance for your team? Well, if you haven't considered our sponsor 𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿, I'm here to strongly recommend that you do. I absolutely love working with 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐿. Not only is it the world's leading legal practice management and legal client relationship management software, it also has a really solid core mission to transform the legal experience for all, something I personally support. What sets 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐿 apart for me, it's their dedication to customer success and support. There are lots of legal softwares out there, but I know from talking to 𝐤𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐿 users that their support offering is miles ahead of the rest, with their 24/5 availability via email, in-app chat, and over the phone. Yes, you can actually call in and speak to someone. 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬 is also the G2 crowd leader in legal practice management, in comparison to 130 legal practice management softwares, and has been for the last 14 consecutive quarters. G2 Crowd is the world's leading business solutions review website. You can check 𝐤𝐤𝐬𝐬's full list of features and pricing at www.𝐤𝐤.com/legally-speaking. That's www.clio.com/legally-speaking. Now back to the show.
I think in its world, digital experience analytics is the probably a known description for UX professionals within retail and the web sort of part of the market. The aim is software that enables organizations of all sorts to monitor, manage, optimize what they get or what they offer their customers online. So it's analyzing, understanding customer journeys, what frustrates them, what delights them, what connects people with either whether it's revenue or whether going to pages they want to, delivering a message. So it's a really close and deep analysis of behaviors in a way that goes beyond just clicks. It can be hesitations, movements. I even learned the term rage clicks. Have you ever heard of rage clicks? I hadn't heard of that.
No, tell us what they are.
But you ever go to a website and something won't click and you go, oh, bloody thing.
Oh, yes.
What, those? So it's that deep. So it goes under the skin. It goes beyond basic analytics to really, it's almost the equivalent in a store to having people walking around the store looking at, oh, that person's looking for the tomato ketchup and can't find it. And they're really angry because it's not next to the brown sauce. So go and tell the management to move it to the brown sauce. Honestly, it's kind of that fundamental. But of course, the nuance and the complexity of doing it on the web, capturing a lot of data points and being able to really powerfully push that into a usable format to enable people to just deliver better to their customers. So it's a really exciting exciting product, and it's an exciting team. The company's grown. I'm just getting on for almost 2 years, and I think the employee numbers grown from 700 to 1,700 in that time. The legal and compliance team was about 22 when I started. We're now 50. We were probably in 4 or 5 countries. We're now, I don't even know the number, around 15 or 16, I think. Don't quote me on that. Oh no, we're live. But that's that kind of number. So the growth has just been immense. But what I like about that is that the company's still got a kind of startup growth mentality. Everyone gets it. There's ambiguity everywhere, which is a challenge. But it also, if you've got that mindset across the business, everyone gets it. So you feel comfortable being innovative, but particularly in a legal team, you have to feel comfortable with dealing with all of that change whilst managing the risk. But it all comes down to great leadership, great culture. I'm happy there. The people are, there's a brand of person that works in this business. And even as we grow, and it's, well, hang on, we're getting grown up now. We're becoming quite a big, serious business. We really don't want to lose, and it's impressed upon us from the leadership. We don't want to lose that essence of what makes us what we are, what makes us so engaged and creative, and what sort of, frankly, the competitive advantage in both within the business and actually within our legal function as an effective legal unit comes down to the essence of what the people are all about, what we stand for, and what we see each other and what we see as important.
Yeah, and I always say, business is made of the people, the values, those core values shared, but bringing different perspectives to help grow and move the business forward. And I think you gave a great example. It's well known that, we always say data is the new gold or the new oil. That example you just gave there of being able to get that data and actually then make better informed decisions from an online perspective, valuable. So, let's talk a little bit more about AI, Jeremy. What extent do you think AI is growing in importance, both not just necessarily in the legal profession, but in the field of software development? And how can directors like yourself utilize AI to ensure more menial tasks?
So this is an interesting one, because I think the visible significance of AI has come to the fore in the ChatGPT area. I've been working with AI tools in legal for about the last 10 years, and I can see what they do. And I think here's the difference. You can see what they do and where their strengths and weaknesses are. My fear is that GPT and generative AI generally is masking over, it's creating this illusion. Those weaknesses are still there, yet it's you don't realize they're there, or it can be put in hands where people think, well, this is so credible and amazing, I can use it. So I don't actually think that much change personally. I think if you use it in an applied way, and we regularly daily use AI tools in Content Square for contract analysis, but typically, just as a very kind of broad example, I would say these things are 90% accurate, but you don't know which 10% isn't, and you need to know that, and you need to understand where its workings are to know where that risk is. Depending on what question, I've done various different queries and calibrations on things, or some I can look at pick a few from the data set and think, it's nailed this. This ain't going to be a problem. I'm going to trust the other 1,000. We're good. There are others where I can see, hang on, it's coming up with that answer. That it's not interpreting that right, because frankly, it's not intelligence, is it? It's big data. It's not thinking like a human mind. I think people forget that it's coming up with the results that may have come from a human mind or may look like they did. And I think understanding that difference, it doesn't work the same. It isn't intelligent. So you've got to understand that difference. You can get the most out of it. So get cut through the hype and treat it as a very useful and powerful tool, in the right hands, understanding the limitations and applied in the right way. And I feel our use is growing. We're getting more value out of it. We're working with some very good tools that plug into our CLM systems and automate a lot, and it's all good. But it's not. This has been just an incremental improvement in my use across different organisations in the last 10 years, and I think that will continue. I don't see a massive. I think it's caught more attention because of the generative element and how polished it looks. But I don't think there's any, personally, and I'm not an expert. I'm just seeing what I see in legal. I'm not seeing, and actually, if you look at the chat, even there's a lot of chat online on social media about it. When the question gets, okay, well, give us a use case then. What's your greatest use case? That it all stops a bit. It's all about this could do that. This will change everything. Law firms are going to. No, actually, I think there'll be incremental efficiency. In-house teams can get a lot out of it, and gain a lot more efficiency. But it's always going to be incremental, and it's always going to require that knowledge of spotting where the risk is.
Yeah, and again, I think you've given a really good example there. I think the main thing I always encourage people and talk about with this is just embrace and stay curious and be open to learning. Particularly with AI going at the speed that it is. I mean, you've touched on it, but just to dive a little bit deeper, as part of your role, you're doing a lot. You're leading innovation, technology, scalability, strategy, business impact, and fun. We need fun in the workplace, very important. So, what does a typical day look for yourself as sort of director of legal ops?
Interesting. So it's a mixed bag. Really. The funny thing is, there's the proactive things, because as I said, you're constantly reinventing yourself and spending time with leaders of business units, actually on a kind of discovery thing. What else can we do? What do you need us to do? But you're not looking for work. You're looking for opportunity to develop efficiencies and scalability. So we have an outbound program of both liaising with department heads within the legal functions, litigation, IP, employment, commercial, and also business units within the organization, whatever it is, marketing, sales. So there's a sort of constant outbound dialogue going on with those. There's a lot of systems improvement. So we have various enterprise platforms to do all sorts of things, whatever you've got your Salesforce, your Workday, and those things, and how we integrate our systems with that, and making sure every time a system changes, we know what moving parts there are, where things integrate, and where data comes from, to keeping everything rigorous. So there's constant, in a large organization, there's a constant sort of program, if you like, of outbound discovery as well as monitoring and managing. There is within the legal team, there's a program of capturing data, monitoring what we're doing, monitoring resourcing, who's busy, who's not busy, where's the work coming from, where's it going, are things preventable, they're not preventable, have we got enough resource, do we need elsewhere? We spend time administering, monitoring, managing outside counsel spend. So that's also part of it. I've got a small team. There are 4 of us in legal ops, doing various different things. But I always say legal ops isn't really a team. Legal ops is a discipline. I've got a brilliant team, and everyone, we have a Slack channel, very humbly called Legal Ops Wizards. And we encourage people to, if you're doing anything in your day job and it's annoying you, just stick something in that, just tell me now. And I'm sorry to bother you, but this isn't working, or this is a pain. Just put it in there, because we can fix things usually very quickly with a tweak, and it'll be done, it'll be gone. So we want to hear about that. So we get the whole team who buy into the whole idea that anything that, if you do the same thing twice, we can probably make that not happen. So the whole team buy into that. We have a lot of fun doing it. We have a lot of fun trying to be creative. And sometimes we say, well, no, we can't fix that because some things can't be automated. That's fine. as long as we automate what we can, and then we focus the resources on what can't be. So long story short, it's a big team effort. So it's a small function of people with a label, but it's a discipline that our whole team have to understand and buy into. They do.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating, isn't it? How the world of work has moved so forward. And I guess let's talk about skills then. What skills do you think are necessary to possess to be successful in senior leadership and management roles, such as the ones that you've had throughout?
I'll start. There's a lot of generic ones that'll be a bit boring. For me, the key in this place, and it goes back to my perspective and what I talked about at the beginning, is understanding at one end of a spectrum you've got a super powerful legal brain, and at the other end you've got a need for a service or an output, a need which is probably going to be commercial or personal, and that bit in the middle. So for me, the most important thing, there are lots of other things, but the most important thing that really supports effectiveness is having what I call a commercial empathy or organizational empathy, understanding what everyone else's angle looks like, because you're having to reconcile all these different things. So being able to quite quickly visualize how a business works, how all the different parts go into it, and where legal fits in, and having that vision, for me, that's a really, really powerful sort of multiplier. Within that, you can either be, you're not going to be everything. In legal ops, you need a process mindset. You need to understand what process is, avoiding duplication, data, rigor. So you need to have almost that legal project management kind of, or just general project management mindset and rigor to some extent. Doesn't mean to see be a project manager, but you need to understand logic, processes, systems. There's a technology piece. If you're good at that, great. There's a financial management piece. If you're good at that, great. You're probably not going to get all of them. You need to understand the significance of them and how they tie into each other. But there's a real mixed bag of those there. And actually, I'll add one last one that probably underrated in importance is communication. How you position yourself as a legal function, how you communicate, and how you get everyone to communicate as a brand, and how you behave, that really shapes how the business view you. And you hear about these scenarios where people say, "Oh, the legal department always says no," and there was blockers and everything. That typically comes from, you're there to say no. Frankly, I don't oppose saying no when you should be saying no. But if you've built yourself the right brand, when you say no, people will say, "Okay, if legal said no, then it must be a proper no," because we know they will always try and find a way. And if they, so that all comes from the way you communicate, both literally on a tactical level, when you send a message around, when you send an email, or when you put a web page out, or whatever you do, but as well as your whole way of interacting. So having that, I don't think people understand the importance of making sure that the whole team buy into that as your own brand, how that impacts the whole. It makes, if you get it right, and I'm very lucky to be in a place where that works well, you just don't have any of these issues where you get misunderstood, or you're worried about saying this, I want to be a business enabler, I want to make this happen. It's kind of, people get it because you've done all the hard yards in identifying the elements of that and what you're there to achieve and what your purpose is.
Yeah, really well said, and thank you for sharing that. And I want to pick your brain one final time before we wrap up. What would be your advice to professionals looking to take on leadership or management roles, or maybe someone who's a qualified lawyer looking to maybe look at a different role connected to the legal industry, or someone looking to break into the legal industry but not necessarily looking to go down the S7E route?
Okay, so I hate giving people advice because I don't regard myself as anyone to to speak. There are too many labels on things. You can either go this route, this route, this route. I'd complete open mind about what you want to do and how you want to do it. I think the way the market's changing, particularly the way in-house is changing, there is scope for you if you've moved from or if you've got legal qualification and you don't want to practice law and you want to move into delivery, there is real scope to do that. But if you start thinking, well, how do I go from being a lawyer to being, actually you were already across all of those things, but probably your emphasis or the visibility of those elements in your mind has been shaped by your background. So you just need to free up and open your mind. That shouldn't be a barrier, but sure, it's easy for me to say, but you've got to unlock that. And the other way around, you're a, dare I say it, non-lawyer, as I've been my whole career, and you're worried about this barrier. Again, there isn't. I've realised that there isn't a barrier. I know what lawyers do, and I know what lawyers don't do, and it's kind of, it's not that bigger hurdle or bigger barrier. So I just think that open-mindedness people should stop typecasting themselves because of fear of that I'm not this or I'm not that. How to transcend it, right? You can listen to me telling you, and I get it's not easy because these labels are still more in the legal industry than anything. These labels are still prevalent and still mean so much, and sure, you need to cling on to these things for familiarity. But my advice is that most of them are illusory. whether you're a partner, whether you're a legal ops professional, whether you're a project manager, it's kind of, you're all in the same place, and actually everything overlaps. It's just a question of emphasis and perspective.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I love that you talk about kind of that open mind approach. And I've loved learning more about your journey, Jeremy, and what you've been doing and the types of organizations you've been and all things technology. It's just right up my street, and our listeners are going to absolutely love it. And I'm sure they're going to want to follow you or know more. So if they want to follow you or get in touch about anything discussed today, what's the best way for them to contact you? Feel free to shout out any social media handles you use or web links. We'll also share them with this episode for you too.
Yeah, sure. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, but I guess Twitter, 𝐤𝐻𝐽𝐻, 𝐥𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐭𝐞. It's my Twitter handle. And actually, I'd love to hear from people, because I built a big network in Twitter back in maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And there was a lovely legal space. As we all know, Twitter's gone a bit, politics and crazy, and it's actually got a bit noisy. And the legal community has been watered down through that, which I miss. And I'm trying to keep in touch with it, and I find it harder. So if anyone wants to connect with me on Twitter, including yourself, Rob, and start a conversation, I'd love the opportunity to try and get a bit more visible and active there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us on your birthday. Happy birthday from all of us once again on the Legally Speaking podcast. Wishing you lots of continued success with your career and future pursuits. But for now, from all of us, over and out. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you like the content here, why not check out our world-leading content and collaboration hub, the Legally Speaking Club, over on Discord. Go to our website, www.legallyspeakingpodcast.com, for the link to join our community there. Over and out.